I think my juices flow all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know as much as I know.
Right now, we've been able to stuff the stuff.
The curse is broken. NC State fans, finally. Finally.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
I mean, that's a triple play.
The Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.
Welcome to a special Christmas edition of Pack Therapy. I'm your host, Joe Giglio. Wolfpack great Scott Wood will be joining us with a conversation with point guard Jarkel Joyner here in a minute. But NC State coming off of an important week. They had wins over Furman on Tuesday at home, where really everything worked well. And then Saturday, they went to Chicago, played a neutral site game against Vanderbilt, took care of the Commodores, had to come back in the second half to do that. DJ Burns was a big part of that win. I want to get into those wins, and I want to get into Thursday's game against Louisville. But first, let's talk a little bit about the portal, and let's talk a little bit about collectives, because this week, NC State saw quarterback Devin Leary commit to Kentucky. And, you know, I was over at Garner High School on Tuesday night, and there's a lot of State fans in Garner, and a lot of them were either coming up to me and asking or walking by and kind of asking, hey, what happened with Devin Leary? Why did he go to Kentucky? Now, if you've been listening to the OG, when Leary had the pectoral injury back in October, the issue was the injury itself, right pec, okay? That affects his ability to throw. Devin's best quality is his arm. So in order for Devin to have a future in the NFL, he has to work out for NFL teams and show them that he is healthy and that he can throw. This timetable for the surgery is such that doing that before this year's draft was not going to be feasible, at least not putting Devin in the best position possible. In the interim, after Devin gets hurt, you see freshman quarterback MJ Morris really kind of come on like gangbusters, particularly in the home win over Virginia Tech and then the performance against Wake Forest. What you saw was the future of the position for NC State. And as NC State fans, you know, that is not a baton that is lightly passed. You know, you have Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, Mike Glennon, Ryan Finley, Jacoby Brissett, go back to Eric Kramer, Roman Gabriel. Quarterback at NC State, as I like to say, there's two things that NC State does great. They produce NFL quarterbacks, and they know how to tailgate. So Morris being able to come on and show what he did in his true freshman season, which we're going to, you know, you want to talk about where Devin is on his actual calendar and what year is. He's going into his 6th year, okay? So NC State had a decision to make. Do you allow Devin to come back and be the starter after he rehabs and have him for one season? Or do you stick with MJ? That's NC State's choice, okay? Devin also has a choice, and I think people need to understand that. After 5 seasons in NC State, now he was hurt in 2 of his 3 years as a starter. That's a factor as well with the NFL. So kind of like Peyton Wilson needed to come back and show NFL teams that he could stay healthy. Part of Devin and his future in the NFL is he needs to come back in the 2023 season and prove that he can stay healthy. Is it in NC State's best interest to use Devin Leary for 1 year or to potentially groom and use MJ Morris for 3 years? I think we all know the answer to that question. Now, let's get to Devin's portion of this decision. Devin could have said, you know what? I'm done with college. I'm going to go try to make it in the NFL. I have enough tape. Even if I can't work out, I think I could be a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. It's probably towards the end of the draft. He could have done that. But if you were Devin, wouldn't you put your name in the portal instead and see which teams were interested in him being the quarterback next year? That's just on the surface of your pro potential, all right? The second part of that is collectives, NIL. With NIL money, and we've heard some crazy numbers this week from Mac Brown about Drake May potentially being offered $5 million now. He says we know which teams it would be, and Alabama recruited Drake May. out of high school, so maybe that's one of them. And we also know Alabama's got all kinds of money. Georgia also, in my opinion, is on the verge of winning their second straight national title. Their veteran quarterback, Stetson Bennett, he's finally done with his college eligibility. So there's a window there for a quarterback to go into a really good situation at Georgia in a spotlight where you know the defense is going to be outstanding, where you know you're going to have skill players and you know you're going to have a running game and really shine. Fair enough. I go through the rest of the SEC and you look at the collective money at Texas A&M. You look at the collective money at Auburn. You look at Ole Miss. I know Lane Kiffin has been kind of playing the world's smallest violin about where Ole Miss ranks in the SEC in terms of being able to put money together for a collective, but I suspect there's still some money flowing there down at the Grove. So it always made sense to me for Devin. Again, if you're going to make a decision, not only about your NFL future, but what gives me the best chance financially, well, that's where the collective comes in. Now, the number I've heard from Kentucky is 800,000. And in my estimation, after Devin got hurt, I thought it would be reasonable for him to make $500,000 next year to play college football. Now, if you start thinking about it in those terms, in Devin's terms, why wouldn't he go somewhere that was going to offer him the most money? Why wouldn't he go somewhere to play next season without anyone behind him? Because, MJ would be behind him at NC State to make some life-changing money. Because think about it. We don't think about athletes might not think $500,000 or even $800,000 is life-changing. If somebody handed you that much money right now, I'm guessing you'd take it and be pretty happy about it. So when I think about the situation, I think NC State made the best choice for them because of MJ Morris and also Ben Finley. Ben Finley is also committed to come back next year, so has proven to be a perfectly acceptable backup and someone who's perfectly capable of winning games, as he did at Carolina at the end of the regular season if he needs to come in and play. So I think NC State made the best decision, and I think Devin Leary made the best decision. He goes to Kentucky now. Kentucky and Mark Stoops, he's done a really good job in Kentucky. Now they don't sling it all over the yard. They do have a player this year, Will Levis, who is going to be one of the first quarterbacks taking in the draft next year. So again, you're going to be in a spotlight position. They run a pro-style offense. So for Devin, the move makes sense. For NC State, the move makes sense. So if you could, this Christmas and New Year's, not be like, well, I can't believe this guy left for Kentucky. Okay, this is like Russell Wilson all over again. No, it's none of those things. It's none of those things. With the collective, with the portal, Devin Leary made the best choice for him. NC State made the best choice for NC State. Quite frankly, I think both are in great positions to have success next season. That's on the football side. On the basketball side, as I mentioned, Scott Wood is going to have a conversation with Jarkel Joyner. Joyner, in my opinion, has been the biggest difference on this NC State team, which is now 10-3 as it heads into its Louisville game Thursday at PNC Arena. We'll talk a little bit about what's wrong with the Cardinals here in a second, but Joyner has been a steady hand, a veteran leader, somebody who makes good decisions. Quite frankly, that hasn't always happened under Kevin Keatts here in his sixth year. Markel Johnson had his moments for sure. There were also times where Kevin Keatts was ready to pull my hair out over Markel Johnson's inconsistencies. So having that steady hand in Jarkel Joyner, in my opinion, has made the biggest difference this season for NC State as they try to get back into the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2018. Getting there is going to require more than just Joyner and outstanding guard Terquavion Smith. We've seen that already with NC State's losses to Pittsburgh and Miami. Real quick, you probably noticed Tuesday night, Miami at home beat Virginia. Okay? So the people who were like, oh, that Miami loss, that wasn't good. Look, you don't get credit for good losses, and I'm fully aware of this. But let us not badmouth the Miami program, what Jim Larinaga has done. They take care of Virginia on Tuesday night, and now they, believe it or not, are in the driver's seat in the ACC race, which would be totally unexpected. But you get back to that collective money. They spent in the offseason to get the transfers that they got, and that's the position that they're in. This is the new reality of college sports. You can go into the portal. You can go to your collective, and you can pay players, and you can improve your team immediately. NC State this year, basketball side, yeah, they had to pay to bring Terquavion Smith back. They had to pay to get Joyner. Okay. DJ Burns is a player. I know people are excited right now that Isaiah Miranda is a 7-footer, a little bit of the unknown, 4-star recruit, big kid, bouncy, athletic, all these things that we think that we know about Isaiah Miranda. But I think with Dusan Mahorsic's injury, DJ Burns and his ability to stay on the floor becomes that much more important for NC State. And you saw this in the Vanderbilt win. And Burns, we got to try to keep in mind now. Burns last year, he wasn't just some random guy at Winthrop. All right. He was the conference player of the year at Winthrop. 15 points a game, 4 boards. You know, he's been a double-digit scorer his whole career. He's 6'9". He's probably in the 300-pound range. They list him at 275, but he's probably in that 300-pound range. I don't think he's like morbidly obese, but obviously there's some weight that he can work off and he can get into better game shape. The more minutes NC State can get out of Burns, I think the better off that they're going to be. He's able to play 27 minutes against Vanderbilt. 18 points, 9 boards. He's a good passer too, with 3 assists. But the thing that has struck me since the very first game of this season and seeing DJ Burns is he can really stroke. I think he actually might have the best shot on the team. Now, Scott Wood will probably talk me off that ledge in later editions of Pack Therapy, but in my opinion, the big man has a great stroke. But you saw Furman on Tuesday night. He played a lot in the first half, and then he didn't play at all in the second half. Now, NC State ends up winning by 19 points. And I mentioned they had everything going offensively against Furman, which was great to see. They did not have everything going against Vanderbilt, though, on Saturday night in Chicago. And this was one of those games where they needed a post presence, and Burns delivers with the minutes that he did and the scoring that he did. You know, again, I don't know what Miranda can realistically add to the mix, and I suspect we will see him Thursday against Louisville. But the truth of the matter is, without Mahorsic, I really think Burns is probably the more likely key and more likely answer that NC State fans are looking for. All right, so the ACC schedule continues for NC State on Thursday over at PNC. And look, there are reset years, and then there are years that Louisville is going through right now. This is a program that, quite frankly, I don't think was treated fairly by the FBI. I'm convinced that the FBI, whoever spearheaded the operation, Chalk Talk or whatever, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, whatever the heck they ended up calling it, Varsity Blues, something along those lines. I'm convinced that that was a Kentucky fan who just wanted Rick Pitino fired. Bottom line, because nothing ever came of that for anything really that demonstrated any kind of bribery, demonstrated any kind of racketeering or whatever nonsense that the government was trying to prove. All it accomplished was to get Rick Pitino fired. So Pitino gets fired, and that was after the 17 season. And they go through this mishmash of David Padgett. Then they bring on Chris Mack, who at the time, remember, was the it coach. And Mack doesn't even get through a 4th season at Louisville. Remember, they gave him a 7-year deal because they thought they'd have to get through this FBI case, which went back to the Bowen kid, who they basically had to pay because Donovan Mitchell went pro. This is after the 16-17 season. So Louisville is Louisville is one of the great programs of college basketball. I don't think that's disputable. They've had different coaches win national championships. And when you look through the history of schools that have had success, a lot of them are one-coach schools. And with Denny Crum and Rick Pitino, Louisville's had some guys who can win. And I want to say Kenny Payne can win. Now, how do you recover from a start like this? They were 0-9 to start the season. And quite frankly, some embarrassing losses in there. And Bellarmine is not one of them. A school there in Louisville that had transitioned up to the Division I level. That's a really good program. I'm not talking about that. Louisville should never lose at home to App State. Sorry to do that to you, App State. Wright State is another team that they lost to at home by a point. They lost by a total of 2 points in those 2 games. You look at the other games, though, they've played all pretty much good teams. Arkansas is a tournament team. Texas Tech's a tournament team. Cincinnati, they got their doors blown off. Maryland is a tournament team. Miami's a tournament team. Florida State was bad. But Florida State also is in a weird space where they're not exactly the Florida State roster that we're going to see by the end of the year. So anyway, Louisville now at 2-10 after Tuesday's loss to Lipscomb. They come into PNC with an 0-2 record in the ACC. Louisville's problem, you look at the roster, El Ellis is a kid from Durham. He's a nice kid, but he shouldn't be their best player. Jalen Withers had some success 2 years ago, was an absolute disaster last year. They don't have enough good players, is what it comes down to. Kenny Payne's track record as a recruiter at Kentucky and his previous experience at Louisville suggests that he's going to be just fine as a recruiter. I also think Louisville is one of those schools bringing this back to collectives where he will be able to recruit with the full power of the Louisville fan base and money behind them legally, because that's where we are legally again with collectives and the portal. I am Joe Giglio. I am the co-host of Pack Therapy. And when I come back, my other co-host will join me, Scott Wood. And Scott will have a conversation with Jarkel Joyner. I think Jarkel's the most important player on this NC State team this season. We'll listen to what Jarkel has to say about his new start here at NC State right after this.
So here we are with Jarkel Joyner, NC State point guard, the leader. He's been an absolute joy for me to watch. If you're into the basketball lingo, I call it a dog. He's out there. He's the heart. He's the engine. I appreciate you coming on, Jarkel.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you.
Well, I'll start it off because one of the things that I'm kind of interested is why did you make the decision to come to NC State? There's a lot of teams on you, obviously coming from Ole Miss and obviously the connection to Levi, but ultimately what kind of made you make that decision on coming to NC State?
Man, when I first talked to Coach Keats, he was the first coach to call me right when I got in the portal. Man, you can just get that feeling of genuine.
Yeah.
And that's what he felt to me. And when I came on my visit, man, it felt like home. And like I knew he was gonna coach me to be a better basketball player, but he could make me a better man as well. And all the coaches staff, Coach Rich, Coach Wright, Coach Snell, Coach Levi, of course, Coach Joel, everybody, man, they make me a better man because they know I'm older guy, been in college for forever. But man, it's just the whole coaching staff, man. It felt like home.
But that I think also is what kind of makes you a great leader is that you've been here, you've experienced it. I know one of the first conversations I told you is even though you're a transfer, you've been through it. So
right.
You don't hesitate to come in here and lead, and that's what you've kind of done. So,
yes,
kind of jump in and springboard into the next question is the difference between SEC basketball and ACC basketball. Even I only experienced ACC basketball. We always joke that, Big Ten's kind of your more physical game. What, if anything, have you noticed is the main difference between SEC and ACC style?
Oh, man. That's tough, man. I feel like in the SEC, it's a lot of athletic guys that, rely on more athleticism. In ACC, a lot of skilled guys, at the four, at the SEC, you have a high flying athletic guy that can slash. Then ACC, Jack Clark is athletic, but he's more skilled. He can shoot it, pick and pop 4, switch 1 through 4. So it's just things like that, little things like that, the position wise.
Yeah, no, it's almost like a hybrid between them. You
right.
get the SEC that is crazy athletes, and then obviously your Big Ten is just more power, physicality, and then you get the ACC, which I feel like is the hybrid between kind of a mixture of both.
Yeah,
you get a little
exactly.
bit, a really good skill set and a lot of athleticism. So, Levi kind of said it from the start. When I was having conversations about the team, hey, what do we look like? How are we doing? And he said that I've got the best guard play in the ACC. Obviously, with you and Terquavion getting a lot of headlines. What's it been like to play with Terquavion so far early on in the season?
I mean, I love playing with T, man. He's a joy. He's a joy to play with, man. He's just electric. He get
Yeah.
it going, man, and he's so unselfish. He's so unselfish. I don't know a lot of people realize that, man, but I feel like he's one of the most unselfish superstar in college basketball, man.
Yeah.
He loves to cheer for his teammates. Even when I got it going, man, he tell me keep it going. If I haven't taken a shot in a while, he'll say, "Kill, man, you gotta take some shots." Like he's so unselfish, man, and I love playing with him, man. He's fun.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've really seen his game involve a little bit, and I think partially, because the crowd now that is with him, he probably has a little bit more comfort in the athletes and the players around him, so he started to
Right,
trust people a little bit more, which
right,
I think is big because I think you've also seen it from Casey. That's why Casey has had such a good start because you get teams that are looking at you. You got teams that are looking at T, and when he puts the ball on the floor, he now trusts Casey to knock
yep.
down those shots. So it's opened up some opportunities for him. Uh, so we both have had the luxury of playing or being coached by the great Levi. Now I won't say it to his face, so I'm comfortable saying it on the podcast. He's obviously gained a lot more weight since when he was with me. But talk about Levi. Obviously, he's one of those guys that he's been through it. He's played the game at a high level. Talk about not only his mentorship, but him coaching and what he's meant to you.
Man, we're kind of just alike, man. It's just, man, he means so much to me, man. That's my guy. He's like a big brother. Man, he always on me talking stuff. I thought I talked so much stuff. He talks so much stuff. But it's like every day. And that's why we get along so well because, man, we kind of just alike. We got a lot of things in common. Man, and just him mentoring me, just him
Yep.
believing in me. He believe in me a lot. So man, he just give me the confidence to play how I am, and he helped bring that dog out of me.
Well, I don't know if he still plays any pickup, but back when in the summertime he would always play pickup. You know how the Dale has we call it the short
Yeah,
porch, but it's the side basket. So he'd
yeah,
hop out there and he talked the most trash between him, Julius Hodge, and KB would get out there.
yeah.
They would just be yapping. And
That's all he do,
I
man.
looking back on it, man, it was some of the greatest memories because you get a guy that has played at a high level, been to the NCAA tournament, and just kind of the advice and the mentorship that they can give you really makes you a better player. So I know
Right.
having Levi, especially on your side and at Ole Miss, is a great asset to have. So, kind of moving on to this year's season, obviously a great start. You wish you get the Kansas game, and there's a couple, just I told everybody. I mean, a few people were freaking out over the Pittsburgh game, but I'm like, look, man, you have nights where you just don't throw the ball in the ocean. It
You got
happens,
that right.
and
Most definitely,
and
man.
and it's once in a while, but kind of going forward, what do you expect out of this team going forward, especially into your ACC play? And what are one of the things that as a team you guys want to get better at going forward?
Oh man, we just got to finish games. We're a great first half team. Then we get kind of lackadaisical in the second half. We get comfortable, and we can't get comfortable because this league is hard. Anybody can get beat on any given night, and I feel like that's what you're gonna see going forward. Us just pushing the gas pedal even more in the second half, and when we up, we got to keep being up and try to take a team out. Try to not give them confidence to get back in the game. And I feel like that's what you're going to see from us moving forward. Just us better on the defensive end. We know we can score with anybody in the country. I mean, we top 10 in the country in scoring, and we just got to get stops. And that's what you're going to see getting forward.
Yeah. Now with obviously Doosan going down, you kind of got to plug and play there with, you know, obviously everybody's going to see DJ, and then you're
Yep.
going to get a little bit of EB. You're probably going to
Mhm.
get a little bit of Ernest.
Yep.
Kind of from that standpoint, have you guys felt like you've had to make any adjustments on the defensive end? Because now, Doosan was a guy that could switch. He does a
Yep.
little bit of everything. And now you got to bring in your EBs and your Ernest. Have you guys felt like you've had to make any adjustments for them coming in?
Most definitely. Dushan's been amazing. Like you said, man, energy guy can switch if he have to. Emergency switches, can stay in front of guards. But I feel like Ernest and EB can do the same. Ernest
Yeah.
bring a nice versatility. EB athletic. Ern can run the floor. So man, just giving them confidence, knowing they got to be the next man up, and it's been working. You know, they've been doing great in practice. They had a great practice today, both of them. So it starts in practice. You know, giving them confidence, letting them know how big a part they are. Even when Dusan was in, you know, we'll let them know like y'all a big key to this team.
Yeah.
And they figuring that out.
Well, and that's the thing. I think you know, when I was having conversations with a lot of people and everybody kept asking me, like, what do you think about the team? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be very honest. And I know it puts a lot of pressure on yourself, but, you know, the team kind of goes with Jarkel. And I think, you know, Casey's another one. I think you know kind of what you're going to get out of T night in, night out. But, you know, Jarkel's that leader on the front. You know, it starts with his on-ball pressure. You know, I'm trying to think the game we saw the other night, whether it was Miami or Pittsburgh or any of them, you know, you draw the best guard each and every night. And I think that kind of mentality starts with you, and then it feeds back to everybody. So, you know, I appreciate you coming on and having this conversation. I know
Thank you.
I'll be in the gym a little bit more to see you guys for sure. I've been to all the games but 2 this year. So, you know, I appreciate everything you give for NC State and taking the time to have a conversation with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, that's going to do it for us this week on Pack Therapy. I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, and we will see you next week. Mike Glennon will be back. He'll join me. We'll talk about NC State's Duke's Mayo Bowl with Maryland, an old ACC rival. If you've missed any of our episodes, catch them on Apple, Spotify, Google. You can always check us out at WRALSportsFan.com or new for this basketball season, check out the Fans YouTube page. Go to 99.9 The Fans YouTube page. You can catch all of our episodes in all of their video glory. Again, enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy your holidays this week. I'll be back next Thursday with Mike Glennon, and we'll get ready for the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Enjoyed it, guys. Hope you have a good one.